The NSA's most sophisticated cyber weapons, developed over 20 years, leaked onto the internet overnight, and a mysterious group began auctioning them to the highest bidder. Starting price, 1 million Bitcoin. But this wasn't just a sale. This was the opening of digital Pandora's box. Inside were cyber weapons that would unleash WannaCry, EternalBlue, and chaos across the globe. August 13th, 2016, the day everything changed in the cybersecurity world. That morning, a mysterious message appeared on Twitter and various hacker forums. The sender called themselves the Shadow Brokers and claimed to possess America's most classified cyber weapons. The message was written in broken English. Attention government sponsors of cyber warfare and those who profit from it. How much you pay for enemies' cyber weapons. This wasn't just an empty threat. The Shadow Brokers released samples of actual attack tools from the NSA's elite hacking unit called the Equation Group to prove their claims. When these tools were examined by cybersecurity experts worldwide, they were confirmed to be genuine. The cybersecurity community was stunned. Matthew Hickey, co-founder of Hacker House, later recalled, "When I first analyzed these tools, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These weren't just exploits. They were military-grade cyber weapons that could penetrate any network on Earth." The Equation Group was known as the NSA's most secretive cyber warfare unit. Since 2001, this group had been conducting the most sophisticated cyber attacks against targets worldwide. Their tools were so advanced that cybersecurity experts called this group digital gods. Dr. Mikko Hipponen, a renowned cybersecurity expert, described the moment he realized the gravity of the leak. This was like having the blueprints to every nuclear weapon suddenly appear on the internet. The technical sophistication was beyond anything we'd seen in the civilian world. The Equation Group's founding story dates back to immediately after the September 11th attacks. The United States needed a new unit to monitor terrorist organizations' digital communications and develop defenses against cyber threats. However, over time, this unit began developing not just defensive tools, but offensive weapons as well. The unit operated from a classified facility in Fort Meade, Maryland, where the brightest minds in computer science worked in complete secrecy. Former NSA contractor Edward Snowden had previously hinted at their existence, but nobody understood the true scope of their capabilities until the Shadow Brokers leak. The Equation Group's arsenal contained the most advanced weapons of cyber warfare, EternalBlue, a tool exploiting a zero-day vulnerability in Windows operating system's SMB protocol. This vulnerability could affect all versions from Windows XP to Windows 10, leaving billions of computers worldwide defenseless. The exploit was so powerful that it could spread automatically across networks without any user interaction, essentially creating a digital pandemic. Double Pulsar, a tool providing covert access to target systems and creating persistent backdoors. Once installed, this tool could remain active even after system reboots, allowing attackers to return to the system whenever they wanted. Intelligence sources later revealed that Double Pulsar had been deployed against over 100,000 machines worldwide as part of NSA operations. Eternal Romance, another zero-day exploit used to infiltrate Windows systems over networks. This tool was particularly designed for lateral movement within corporate networks. Internal NSA documents showed it had been used in operations against Chinese telecommunications companies and Russian energy infrastructure. Esteem Audit, an attack tool targeting Windows systems' RDP service. It was designed to infiltrate systems through remote desktop connections. The tool was so sophisticated that it could bypass most commercial antivirus software and intrusion detection systems. Englishman's Dentist, a tool specifically designed to infiltrate Lotus Domino email servers. It targeted email systems used by large corporations and government institutions. The NSA had used this tool to monitor communications at major banks and Fortune 500 companies. These tools were the product of billions of dollars spent by the NSA over more than 15 years and the work of the world's most talented hackers. Each one was specifically designed and tested for particular targets. And now, all of them had been leaked onto the internet for everyone to access. The technical analysis revealed something terrifying. These weren't just proof of concept exploits. They were operational weapons that had been actively deployed in the field. Metadata in the tools showed they had been used against targets in over 50 countries, including allies of the United States. The Equation Group's tools weren't just technical achievements, they were also part of geopolitical power games. The NSA had used these tools to sabotage Iran's nuclear program, infiltrate China's government networks, and monitor Russia's cyber operations. Now, these tools were in enemy hands. The Shadow Brokers announced they would distribute these tools in two ways. First, they released some tools for free. This was to prove their claims were real. Second, they put the remaining, more valuable tools up for auction. The auction system was quite interesting. The shadow brokers created a Bitcoin wallet called Equation Group Cyber Weapons Auction and announced they would give the entire toolset to the highest bidder. Minimum bid, 1 million Bitcoin, worth approximately $500 million at the time. The auction format was unprecedented in cybercrime history. The shadow brokers treated state secrets like commodities, pricing them according to market demand. They even provided product samples, functional exploits that demonstrated their authenticity. But this was just the beginning. The shadow brokers regularly published new messages, threatening to expose more of the NSA's secrets. Their messages were typically written in poor English and slang expressions, giving clues about their identity. The linguistic analysis became a crucial part of the investigation. Professor Andrea Baroncelli from City University London analysed their writing patterns. The grammatical errors weren't random. They showed consistent patterns that suggested a native Russian speaker trying to write in English. Cybersecurity experts developed various theories about the shadow broker's identity. The first theory was Russian connection. Language patterns and timing in the messages pointed to Russian hackers. The messages often appeared during Moscow business hours, and the broken English contained specific grammatical errors common among Russian speakers. The second theory was insider threat. Perhaps someone from inside the NSA had leaked these tools. The level of access required suggested someone with the highest security clearances, possibly a system administrator or senior analyst. The third theory was state-sponsored operation. Such a sophisticated operation was most likely backed by a nation-state. The technical expertise required to extract and weaponize these tools pointed to a well-resourced intelligence agency. As the investigation deepened, more disturbing details emerged. The stolen arsenal wasn't just a random collection of tools. It represented a systematic theft of America's most classified cyber capabilities. The shadow brokers had essentially digitally burglarized Fort Knox. The real impact of the shadow brokers became apparent in May 2017. That month, the WannaCry ransomware attack occurred worldwide. This attack affected over 300,000 computers in more than 150 countries. The WannaCry attack began on Friday, May 12, 2017. The attackers used the EternalBlue tool leaked by the shadow brokers to exploit the Windows vulnerability. The attack spread so fast that tens of thousands of computers worldwide were affected within hours. Dr. Sarah Gordon, a malware researcher who tracked the attack in real time, described the chaos. "I've never seen anything spread this fast. Every few minutes, thousands more machines were falling. It was like watching a digital apocalypse unfold." UK health system collapsed. The NHS was completely paralysed. Systems went down in 80 hospitals. 19,000 appointments were cancelled. Surgeries were postponed. Patients were transferred by ambulance to other hospitals. Dr. Krishna Chinthapali, a neurologist at the National Hospital, recalled, "We had to go back to pen and paper. Life support machines were offline. We feared for patients' lives." Mass infection in Russia. Over 400,000 computers were affected. Ironically, the NSA's tools hit Russia the hardest. The Interior Ministry, emergency services, and even the state railway system went dark. Russian cyber experts worked frantically to contain the damage, unaware they were fighting American weapons. Education crisis in China. Universities and schools were systematically targeted. Students couldn't complete their exams. Oil companies stopped production. The PetroChina company lost thousands of gas stations as payment systems crashed across the country. Transport paralysis in Germany. Deutsche Bahn train station information panels began displaying WannaCry ransom messages. Thousands of passengers were stranded. The irony wasn't lost on security experts. Germany, America's ally, was being attacked by American cyber weapons. Renault factories in France. Automotive giant Renault had to shut down its factories in France. Production lines stopped. Thousands of workers were sent home. The company estimated losses at millions of euros per hour as assembly lines ground to a halt. But stopping WannaCry is a story in itself. Marcus Hutchins, a 22-year-old British cybersecurity expert, noticed something strange while analysing WannaCry's code. The malware was trying to connect to a specific domain address. Hutchins bought this domain and stopped WannaCry's spread. However, this was only a temporary solution. Marcus Hutchins later explained his thought process. "I saw this domain in the code that looked like gibberish. On a whim, I checked if it was registered. When I saw it wasn't, I bought it for $10.69. I had no idea that simple purchase would stop a global pandemic." A few weeks later, an even more devastating attack called NotPetya arrived. Starting Starting on June 27, 2017, this attack particularly targeted Ukraine, but quickly spread worldwide. NotPetya also used the EternalBlue tool leaked by the shadow brokers. Government crisis in Ukraine. Government institutions, banks, power companies, airports, all were affected. Even the Chernobyl nuclear plant had to manually measure radiation levels. Oleksiy Yasinski, Ukrainian cyber expert, described the scene. It was digital war. Everything connected to a computer stopped working. We realized this wasn't just ransomware. It was a weapon of mass disruption. Maersk's $300 million loss. The world's largest shipping company, Maersk, had to halt its global operations. Operations stopped at 76 ports. 17,000 container ships were affected. CEO Søren Skou later testified, "We had to rebuild our entire IT infrastructure from scratch. Ships were stranded at sea because they couldn't communicate with ports. FedEx's logistics disaster. TNT Express couldn't provide service for weeks. Millions of packages were delayed. The company's European operations were essentially paralyzed, forcing them to resort to manual tracking systems reminiscent of the 1980s. The total cost of these attacks exceeded $4 billion. Maersk alone suffered $300 million in damages. FedEx lost $400 million. And all of this was made possible by the tools leaked by the shadow brokers. The most tragic part was that these tools had actually been developed to protect America. The NSA's cyber weapons were now being used against American companies and allies. The FBI, NSA, and other intelligence agencies launched a major operation to find the shadow brokers. This secret investigation, called Operation Ghost Hunt, brought together the FBI's cybercrime unit, the NSA's internal security department, and the CIA's counterintelligence experts. The investigation team included some of America's most experienced cyber hunters. James Comey, who was FBI director at the time, personally oversaw the operation, recognizing that the shadow brokers represented an unprecedented threat to national security. When the shadow brokers' messages were analyzed, some clues emerged. Time zone analysis. Messages were usually sent during Moscow time working hours, suggesting the operators maintained a normal work schedule in Russian time zones. Language analysis. English errors were systematic and matched typical mistakes made by someone whose native language was Russian. Specific grammatical constructions pointed to Eastern European origins. Technical analysis. The leaked tools contained metadata that could only be accessed by someone with deep NSA knowledge. This suggested either an insider threat or sophisticated foreign intelligence penetration. Bitcoin tracking. Despite extensive blockchain analysis, the auction wallet never received the minimum bid amount. This raised questions about whether the auction was genuine or merely a psychological operation. The shadow brokers continued their campaign throughout 2017, releasing new batches of tools and taunting the US government. They published tools targeting SWIFT banking networks, Cisco routers, and Linux systems. Each release caused new waves of cyber attacks worldwide. Their messages became increasingly political, criticizing American foreign policy and mocking President Trump. In one notorious message, they wrote, "The shadow brokers is wanting to see you succeed. The shadow brokers is not being politicians, but is being appreciating politics." The political implications were enormous. Congressional hearings were held to investigate how the NSA's most sensitive tools had been compromised. Representative Ted Lieu questioned NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers. How can the American people trust that the NSA can protect its own weapons, let alone protect America? The hearings revealed shocking details about the NSA's vulnerabilities equities process, the secret system for deciding whether to disclose security flaws or weaponize them. Critics argued that hoarding 0 days had made America less safe, not more secure. Senator Ron Wyden was particularly harsh. The NSA's cyber weapons have been turned into a cyber Chernobyl. They've contaminated the entire internet. The shadow brokers case forced a complete overhaul of NSA security protocols. The agency implemented new insider threat detection systems, compartmentalized access to tools, and created new oversight mechanisms. Admiral Rogers implemented what he called zero trust architecture within the NSA itself. No single person could access the agency's most sensitive tools without multiple authorizations and constant monitoring. But the damage was already done. The tools continued to be used in attacks for years. EternalBlue role alone was responsible for countless attacks beyond WannaCry and NotPetya. Criminal groups, nation states, and hacktivists all incorporated these tools into their arsenals. The human cost was staggering. Hospitals couldn't treat patients, factories shut down production, and critical infrastructure was compromised. The shadow brokers hadn't just leaked code, they had weaponized the internet itself. In 2020, the US Department of Justice finally announced indictments. They charged 6 Russian GRU EU officers, with the NotPetya attacks directly linking the shadow brokers' tools to Russian military intelligence. The indictments revealed that Russia had not only stolen the tools, but had systematically weaponized them for geopolitical warfare. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco announced, "Today we're exposing the face of Russian cyber warfare. These officers used American cyber weapons to attack American allies. It's cyber warfare, plain and simple." The shadow brokers themselves seemed to fade away by 2018, their mission apparently complete. Their final message was characteristically cryptic. The shadow brokers is being done. Don't be forgetting this old friend, but their legacy lives on. The leaked tools fundamentally changed cybersecurity. Companies worldwide had to rebuild their defenses. The concept of zero trust architecture became mainstream, and the debate over government cyber weapons continues to this day. The shadow brokers proved that in the digital age, even the most powerful intelligence agencies are vulnerable. They showed that cyber weapons, unlike conventional weapons, cannot be controlled once released. And they demonstrated that the internet has no borders. What affects one affects all. Today, as we face new threats from AI-powered attacks and quantum computing, the lessons of the shadow brokers remain relevant. The digital Pandora's box they opened can never be closed. But perhaps by understanding their story, we can build a more secure digital future. The shadow brokers didn't just change cybersecurity, they changed the world, and their shadow still looms over every connected device, every network, and every digital interaction we make. This has been another episode of Hacker Stories. If you found this investigation into the shadow brokers fascinating, please like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of cybersecurity. Every week, we explore the most captivating tales from the digital underground. What story should we investigate next? Let us know in the comments below.